Hello guys and welcome back to Let's Read Higurashi Matsuribayashi final chapter or final battle, whatever. This is like a bathroom break after we just finished the last episode. The sneak attack has begun. So and it's been pretty effective so far. Um it looks like they won't be able to confirm the body uh, by 9. So I don't know how they're gonna get out of this. And by they, I mean Takano's group. I mean, they can still capture Tomotaki, but we'll have to see. Also, just a quick reminder, if you haven't, if you're like a Higurashi only viewer, you don't look at any other things, I just want to do a quick reminder that after Higurashi, we will be reacting to one of the anime series. I do have a video with a poll that just I'm just polling what people would rather watch me react to, Higurashi Go or the original anime series. So yeah, there's a poll video. If you missed it, and you interested in watching a reaction, then you can give your opinion there. It's open for like 7 days, so this is on Wednesday. I'm posting it probably on Sunday or Monday. So I mean, you still have plenty of time. So yeah, if you care, then check that out. But let's just get right into this. I'm excited to see how this goes going forward.
確かに昨日の時点で入江所長は女王感染者が在宅しているのを確認したんですわよね。
在宅を確認
Dude,
ってひどい。
they're interviewing Ire. This is dangerous. I'm surprised Ire hasn't. I mean, let's see how cool he plays this off, because this is super spicy for Ire.
夏風邪をひいたというので様子を見に行ったんです。ですからリカさんの死体が見つかるなんてありえるわけがないじゃないですか。
そうですわよ。ありえるわけがないんですわ。
So if Erie plays it off like he has no idea, I guess that is pretty smart. And it's working because no one's really suspecting him at all.
でもそれを確認しないと信じてしまってその誤解する人もいますので。
誰が何の誤解をするんですか？
そのフルでリカが死んだなどと村に知れたら大変な騒ぎになりますし。
Now I'm certain that she's lying. I don't even need to wait to hear from Tomotaki-san. Takano-san's objective is the execution of the emergency manual. Its premise is about to be destroyed, and that's why she's panicking. She's finally found someone who showed an interest in her research, which made her feel better about herself. Yet that someone is about to cut her off. That's why she's panicking. She's as pitiful as can be. If it were possible, if there was a way to reach out to her, I would reach out to her to save her from drowning. But my hand will never reach. It won't reach her unless she reaches out. She's drowning, but as long as she refuses to seek help, I'll never reach her. Until she realizes it herself, no matter how much I reach out, she'll refuse my helping hand. However, my selfish imagination will have to stop there for now. Is Rika-chan home or not? She goes into the details. She'll become suspicious of me since I told her I saw Rika-chan at home. Yes, that was my worry. That will put me in a very dangerous position. A man who had been on the phone for some time put down the receiver.
さんさ、電話に出ません。不在のようです。
監視班は何と言ってるの？
いえ、監視体制に入った17日以降、外出の形跡はなく、電話の一本もありません。ね
え、入江所長。ということは、まだ中にリカちゃんたちはいるということですわよね。
ええ。そういうことだと思いますがどうでしょう。もうだいぶ治りかけて元気になってますからね。 うまく抜け出して遊びに行ってるのかもしれません。ほら、今日は綿流しのお祭りじゃありませんか。リカさんの家の近くには確か模擬店部会の水場が設けられていたはずです。
I guess the major flaw of that would be why would she sneak out? It's not like she knows she was under observation, I would think.
人の出入りも多いですから、監視の方が見逃してしまった可能性も。
I mean, not
どうな
horrible.
の？
It's true, there's a lot of people there setting up the festival.
そんなことはあり得るの？
入江所長が出られた後には必ずシールしています。
Oh shit. The CEO, huh? Also, I love that Takano face, dude. It's like such a... I don't know what about... I think it's the mouth, dude. But it's actually pretty cool.
まさか窓から出たのでもない限りありえないでしょ。
山犬はあくまでも R は家を出ていないとそういうのよね。
そうです。間違いありません。R は R 宅内です。そして17日以降、一度たりとも外出していません。
So the logical conclusion would be either the police are lying or she wasn't in the house since they started the observation.
絶対に在宅しています。
それを確認したのが入江所長だけで、山犬の誰一人確認していないのにそうだと言える。
One of the mountain dogs looked at me. I swallowed and then nodded to him.
ならどうして沖宮署で R の死体が出てきたりするの？
ですからそれは誤報の可能性も。その後の情報では身元不明死体の検視はまだ終わっておらず、フルで理科であるというのは何者かの憶測に過ぎない可能性が高いと。
もうその話は聞き飽きたわ。その怪情報が流れて東京にまで伝わってからもう何時間が経過してると思ってるの？このままでは東京に。
Takano-san realized that I was standing next to her and shut her mouth. I could already tell what she wanted to say though.
さんさ、東京の野村様よりお電話です。
だからしばらく待てと言ってるのに。
Takano-san usually has a lot of self-control, but she's not doing so well right now. Even her body language makes it clear how irritated she is. Does she have a habit of scratching herself? As she folded her arms, I could see marks where her nails touched the skin. She's clearly not doing well.
高野さんはお忙しいようですね。私が出ましょう。
You don't even know who Nomura is.
野村さんですか？
Are they letting him really do it?
初めてお電話いただく方ですね。
いえ、サンサー邸ですので。
The mountain dogs looked alternatively between Takano's sands and my faces.
入江所長、今ちょっと立て込んでおりますの。
Get out of here. Apparently, Irie survived. Funny.
大変申し訳ございませんけ
I
ど、
guess
所長室にお戻りいただいてもいいですかしら。
everyone being in such a panicked state, plus him playing it pretty cool, has worked out for him.
そうですか。そうですね。入江機関の運営はあなたに任せています。私が口を出すことではありませんね。
誰か所長室までお送りして。早く。
She's basically telling me to get out. Yep. I left the security room quietly.
もしもし高野です。お待たせして申し訳ございませんわ。
何度もお電話して申し訳ございません。いかがですか？
申し訳ございません。今急ぐように指示をしているところです。すでに内部協力員を沖宮署に向かわせましたので、その連絡を待つだけなのですが。
そうですか。ではもうじきですね。では何時頃までにこちらにご連絡をいただけますか？
もちろん分かり次第すぐにご連絡申し上げます。ただそれがいつになるかはお約束が難しいのですが、大至急、急がせておりますので。
サンサ、飛行機に乗ったことは終わりですか？
あ、もちろんですわ。
飛行機が離陸するために加速するとき、この時に大きな出力を得るため、エンジントラブルを起こすことがあるのだそうです。その時、まだ大して速度が出ていないならブレーキをかけ、離陸を断念するそうですが、4発の旅客機なら、うち1つのエンジンが壊れていても飛行は可能ですから。それはもちろん、この度の作戦も同じです。
Ah,
エン
okay.
ジンは一つではありませんから、十分な速度が出ていれば、離陸に踏み切るでしょう。後のことはどうとでもなります。ですが、この度の作戦という
Okay,
飛行機
so
は
they need to take
まだ
off
十分な
first.
速度どころか、これから離陸しようという段階です。お分かりですね。
We need that body confirmation, and then even if there is hiccups during the plan, it'll be as long as they can get that body confirmation, they can still actually be in the game. The first step of the operation was Tomotachi's assassination. Oh, yeah, that hasn't even happened yet. So what Nomura was saying was
も
correct.
しあなたが乗った旅客機が離陸前からエンジンが故障していると分かったらどうしますか？降りるでしょ
Or
う？
maybe I read it wrong.
同じことです。離陸前からエンジンに故障が見つかったため、乗客であるクライアントたちが飛行機を降りたがっています。
If they were already at the point of no return, then a little mistake wouldn't matter that much. But since they are still before the point, they're overly cautious about even a tiny mistake.
それが本当に故障なのか、今点検させているところなのです。
ええ、存じています。あなたは管制塔の管制官。私は彼らをなだめる添乗員。離陸の見込みの薄くなる飛行機から降りたいと言い出すクライアントたち。そんな彼らを懸命になだめているところです。これ以上、事態の改善が遅れると、この飛行プラン自体がなかったことになります。高野さんさ。
Good one, Nomura. I mean,
それはつまり、あなたの祖父の論文が、よまいごとの打分続分であったと。
and it's technically like not wrong, but still, obviously manipulation. It's how you rev up Takano. I don't know if she needs to be more revved up. Let Okanodi steer this, and they might have a chance. But if Takano's frantic, then she might not. She might make more mistakes.
一人の少女が死ぬと、村人が全員錯乱する。バカみたい。何を根拠にそんなよまいごとを。この分厚い研究結果は全てそんな空想論文だ。なんて。おかしい。高野ひふみと高野美代って何なのかしら。おかしいおかしいおかしい。
Takano ground her teeth. She squeezed the receiver so tightly her knuckles went white.
となってしまいます。お分かりですか？これはあなたとあなたの尊敬してやまないおじいちゃんの名誉を守るためでもあるんですよ。
ええ、お気遣いをありがとうございますわ。
安心してください。私はあなたの唯一の味方です。あなたにとって一番幸せに報われる結末になるよう最後までお手伝いします。
Till we kill you after the operation is complete.
ですので、どうか私の顔も立てて沖宮署の動向を確かめてください。私も努力してますけど、機嫌を損ねるクライアントの皆さんのお相手は楽ではないもので。
ご迷惑をおかけしますわ。もうしばらくだけご猶予を。ええ、はい、失礼いたします。
Oh, Takano made sure that Nomura hung up first, then hung up herself.
おこのぎから連絡はまだないの？電話して。
さんさ、つい10分前に電話したばかりです。
Yeah, that's why I don't think revving up Takano is actually the best idea.
情報が入ればすぐに連絡してくることになっています。少しお休みになられては。先ほどのコーヒーも。
Drink your coffee. The unit member tried to serve a cup of coffee to Takano, but she knocked it aside. The cup fell on the floor, making a black puddle. Everybody in the security room went silent.
何よ。ボケっとしている暇があったら誰かモップでも持ってきなさい。10分前に電話してても構わない。もう一度かけて催促して。沖宮署の死体がフルで理科ではないという裏付けと行方不明の富武の確保よ。
Takano was starting to realize something. By now, she could sense there's something behind Tomotaki's disappearance. Tomotachi must know something about what's happening at the Okinomiya police station. He might look dumb, but he somehow found out about the plan, and he was trying to mess with Takano. So Tomotachi was clearly behind all of it. Takano had been intending to let him enjoy the festival that night if he behaved. Uh-oh. The quickest way for Takano to be certain of what was happening would be to see Rikafude's face at her house. But she couldn't leave and she couldn't trust Irie. Okay, so she is suspicious of Irie, at least. And because there were too many people around the festival, the mounted odds had their hands full. If she would answer the phone, that'd do, but she wouldn't answer. That meant the house was empty. That Rikafude's death was real. What went wrong? Who deceived Takano? There's only one person. The only person who claimed that he saw her at the house. Irie was the most suspicious person around. Okay, thank you, please. It's the one flaw, dude. Takano finally has zoomed in on it. Tomotachi had left the hotel and was nowhere to be found, so maybe Rika had left her house and was hiding somewhere else. In other words, Irie betrayed her and was in contact with Tomotachi?
入江所長に監視をつけなさい。
まさか所長の在宅確認が。どうして所長が。
富武はいつの段階でかわからない。
It's literally like one of the only logical conclusions, I think, that Irie was lying.
そして宿を脱出し、R も秘密裏に安全なところへ避難させた。私たちはまんまと騙されて空き家を見張り続けてたのよ。
空き家ということはありえません。人影が確かに。
それが R だという保証はあるの？ R じゃない。監視する山犬を騙すために誰かがあそこに身代わりとして留守をしている。そうよ。違いないわ。
She's on point. Bring that information to Okinoji. I think it would be nice.
おこのぎに R 宅への強行突入を命じなさい。誰がいるんだか知らないけど、そいつは富武や理科に通じている。そいつを締め上げるのよ。
しかし R 宅への突入は本日は不可能です。 R 宅前は水場になっており、祭りの関係者が常にごった返しています。今日の祭りが終わる深夜までは不可能です。
Oh, it's way too late. Can't confirm. They need to kill Tomotachi by then. Just do it, dude.
私が言うことじゃ聞いてくれないの？私の言うことは聞けないっていうの？私の上の保護者の言うことじゃなきゃ聞けないっていうの？
Oh god. The unit members could only watch in silence. They knew that nothing could comfort her. The noise of the phone suddenly broke the silence. Takano practically jumped.
さんさ、朗報です。カラスが東京調査部の定期連絡先の電話番号特定に成功したとのことです。電話番号は獅子骨市内。山犬が住所の特定作業に入りました。
Okay.
富武だ。間違いない。ひばり、腕利きを集めろ。奴は用心してるぞ。抜かるんじゃねえ。白崎はバックアップしろ。了解。ひばり湾より全範囲へ。
Dude, I love this song though. So intense.
突入先が特定され次第出動するぞ。全員登場しろ。くそ、電話会社の協力員はまだか。
調べさせてます。5分です。
It was 8:45 a.m. Oh shit, cutting it close. They didn't know where in Shishibone he was staying, but depending on where it was, it might be too far to get in before 9 a.m. They would have to depend on luck.
バカ野郎、5分じゃねえ、50秒だ。何やってやがんだ。端末に番号を打つだけだろうが。
来ました。住所は市内平坂1丁目のホテルモデラート。交換機を経由しているため部屋番号は不明。
聞こえたな、ひばり。了解。出動。
Go, go, go! Luckily, Hirasaka Block was close enough. Otonori had been right. Tomodachi was hiding nearby. The garage doors of the Otonori gardeners opened one after another, and white vans sped off in a hurry.
やらー、今度はこっちの番だ。まさか調査部に俺の子飼いが混じってるとは思わなかったろうよ。こっちが今度は貴様を奇襲してやるぜ。
I'm hyped. Hotel Moderato. Despite its name, it had a cheap stained sign out front. A dilapidated business hotel at the outskirts of town, the perfect place for someone to lay low in. They might draw in some guests if they renovated the building into a more modern love hotel, but it was clear they didn't have any capital for renovations and could go under any minute. That's the kind of hotel it was. Tomodachi was staying in one of the rooms on the second floor. The interior of the room was worse than his previous hotel. It had only had a bed and a phone. But that phone was what he needed the most at the moment. If he didn't have to receive regular reports, he would keep changing hotels, which was safer. But he needed up-to-date information from the research division, and his course of action would change according to that information. Moving about unnecessarily might cause miscommunication in case of an emergency. Tomodachi never suspected that there was a spy in the research division. My boy Clark. The ticking sound from the clock echoed throughout the room. It was almost 9 a.m., but the phone might not ring at 9 on the dot. Tomodachi waited in front of the phone patiently. He tried to organize the information in his head so he could answer questions more calmly. At the same time, he kept in mind the possibility of an attack. At that time, he heard a woman scream in the distance. It had happened again. He heard another scream. They're just breaking down the doors. Tomodachi got a sense that something was happening inside the hotel. His intuition told him that someone was checking every single room with a master key. Yeah. Tomodachi opened the curtain a little. He saw several mansion dots who were blocking all ways out of the hotel. How long had they been there? The Okinodi surprise attached special. Finally, they had finally found where he was. Tomodachi could hear their loud footsteps. He heard voices too. This cheap hotel wouldn't have chains on the door. They had no means to fend off the master key. Tomodachi could tell there were around 20 of them. No, maybe there are more. It would be no use trying to fight with them. All he could do was hide. Under the bed? Or in the bathroom? At the very least, the ceiling wouldn't open up like in the movies. Should he just jump out the window? It wasn't the second floor after all. It was perfectly possible to survive a jump. They would expect that, however. Yet this was right on city grounds. If he was confident in his legs, it wouldn't be impossible to outrun them. Yeah, as long as he gets into like a public place, then he can probably escape. Tomodachi soon heard footsteps outside his door. This was it. Jump? Probably smarter than hiding. Oh, guitars! He jumped from the window. Of course, there were mountain dogs on the ground waiting for him. They pointed, about 6 of them started running after him. What is this song? I'm pipe beyond comprehension. Oh, did we hear this before? Maybe. It's pretty sick though. Tomodachi shot off right from the position he landed in. This took the mountain dogs by surprise. He had started to dash right after he jumped out of the second floor window. Tomodachi was prepared to do something like that. He had been training in case of an emergency, just like this one.
ひばり店よりひばり湾標的発見追跡中応援求むひばり湾より白鷺標的は裏通りを西に向かい逃走制圧しろ白鷺了解白鷺234そっちへ行くぞ来たぞ
It's so epic, dude. I love this.
やつだ
And we haven't even seen any of the club members, dude. This is all like crime thriller stuff, which is so fun. 3 members of the mountain dogs jumped out from behind the streetlight and stood in Tomodachi's way. They prepared to stop him, but Tomodachi kept running at full speed. They quickly realized he wasn't running towards them to knock them down. He was trying to run past them. There's no point in taking a fighting position. They lowered themselves and tried to tackle him simultaneously.
今だ
Let's see the spirit, Tomodachi. Tomodachi jumped over them. He jumped over them like an Olympic athlete leaping over a hurdle. But he wasn't an Olympic athlete and they weren't hurdles. Tomodachi's heels struck one of the dogs. The 2 flanking Tomodachi thought they seized hold of him. However, as he flew over them easily, he grabbed onto the 2 of their heads and smashed them against each other. Tomodachi knew this wouldn't stop him, but at least he'd gain a little time to run.
標的西側都市線を突破追跡中バカ野郎何やってんだ白鷺店車両で回り込め2つ先のブロックを左折で9時方向に奴を捉える大丈夫かくそー逃がすなの野郎なんてバカ力だ
Finally, the Tomodachi strength is coming into play after he was kind of hyped up to being a pretty strong guy. We never really saw it besides one punch against Mountain Dog and Higurashi.
くそ話が止まらねえ
Tomodachi saw a van with its door wide open ahead of him. It couldn't stop in time, and it hit the wall. As soon as it stopped, several mountain dogs jumped out of the van.
是が非でも止めろ後がないぞかかってきやがりちしょめこっちは5人だ
Tomodachi saw 5 men ahead of him, but he didn't think even those 5 could stop him. Why do trains sound their horns at people on the rails? It's not because the train will get damaged, it's because the people will get hurt. He yelled at them like the horn on a train. He wasn't warning them because they were in his way. He was warning them to move so they didn't get hurt.
こっちはこれだけ人数がいるんだ体重だけ見たって奴の5倍だぞそれで押しかけてもなお奴を止められないってのかありえないありえねえ絶対ここで止めろかかれ
Tomodachi didn't grin. After all, trains don't grin. True. Oh, the close-in. Close up.
富武の確保に成功しました
Oh, okay.
本
Good one, Tomodachi. I mean, it made sense.
当あっさりだったわね。いろいろと聞きたいことがあるわ。殺しちゃダメよ。こっちへ連行して。どうせ殺すけど、彼には似合いの死がすでに用意してあるんだからね。
The phone continued to ring inside of Tomodachi's empty hotel room. Within 30 minutes, Tomodachi was dragged through the back door of the Irie Institute wearing a gauge and handcuffs. Tomodachi didn't even move, as though he was sedated. The Mountain Dog members had carried him out of the van. Irie saw Tomodachi from his window and came out of his office in a hurry. Oh, he's trying to warn Akasaka now. Takano was already there.
これは何事ですか、高野さん。
The Mountain Dog silently glared at Irie. He realized that he shouldn't have left his room.
二郎さんの姿が見えないと思ったら、なんと末期発症をしていたのですわ。
Takano's back to being calm and composed, which is bad because obviously she works better.
不審に思い、山犬たちに探させていて正解でした。
末期発症、富武さんがですか？
Of course, Tomodachi didn't reply. Irie decided not to say any more.
そうですか。
Please, this is the last art. Let Tomodachi live once.
それはとても不幸なことです。すぐに治療薬を投与してください。
もちろんですわ。投与の間に合う段階だといいのですが。
Irie already knew. The Mountain Dogs had tracked him down. Irie wasn't sure if Tomodachi was able to arrange something with Tokyo. He wasn't even sure if the bloodhounds had been called in. He could guess that Tomodachi didn't have time. If the bloodhounds were called in, the Mountain Dogs would catch that information. And if that was the case, they would likely drop everything and run. But Tomodachi was captured and they brought him back to the Institute. That meant that he hadn't gotten that far and they were still trying to fix the damage. In other words, Tomodachi wasn't able to do what they had hoped for. What were they going to do with Tomodachi? Since they brought him back alive, were they planning to torture a confession out of him? That would be very dangerous for him. He'd likely end up dead. Irie realized that he had to do something in Tomodachi's place. The main reason why Irie had to rescue Tomodachi was because he had no way of contacting Tokyo on his own. Takano wanted Irie to be useless, so she never told him about how to get in touch with Tokyo. Irie could receive phone calls from Tokyo, but he could only call them through Takano. Therefore, Tomodachi was the key. Unless Irie rescued him, they couldn't possibly win. But Irie wasn't like the Mountain Dogs. He was simply a researcher. There's no way Irie could rescue Tomodachi from such a high-security area. There were 8 Mountain Dogs in the building. There were usually only 2, but Takano had called in more. Of course, the basement was a highly secured area, and one needed an access card to get in. That card was only given to people in Irie's position. In addition to the access card, one would need a fingerprint match as well. Okay, that makes things a lot harder. The access card alone wouldn't do it. Therefore, the only person who could rescue Tomodachi from that high security basement was Irie. And so, even if it was impossible, Irie had to do it. Irie bunched up his hands into a fist and held them tight to encourage himself, but he only noticed that his fists were shaking. On you, Irie. Did you forget? Irie remembered what Akasaka had told him.
ただ、自らの危機を図るのはとても難しいことです。
Give the signal.
まだ大丈夫。多分大丈夫。などと思っているうちに、連絡の機会さえ逃してしまいかねません。少しでも嫌な予感がしたら、緊急時と判断していいでしょう。陰謀の度合いから考えて、敵は私たちを生かしはしません。くれぐれもご用心を。
Irie felt a cold sweat pooling on his back. Was this the emergency Akasaka was talking about? He shouldn't think it was still okay. He might lose the chance to run. He realized that trying to do something by himself was foolish. He had his security access card, true, but that didn't mean he had to rescue Tomodachi by himself. Just like how everyone else was trying to combine their efforts, he should also ask for help. Also, Tomodachi was in their hands, which meant the mountain dogs had realized they were under attack and were preparing to counter. It was very possible that they were suspicious of Irie too. Once they broke into Rita's house, Irie's lies would be exposed. Indeed, this was the emergency Atasato was talking about. Irie had realized that he was already in danger. He needed to leave immediately. The Sonozaki residence was their gathering spot in case of an emergency. His allies were congregating at the Sonozaki residence. He should explain the situation to them and think about how to rescue Tomodachi. Takano probably wouldn't kill Tomodachi immediately. We also have to be careful that they don't follow Irie to the residence, right? He was intending to kill him that night as the 5th year's curse. So there's still a little time left. He had allies, and with his security access card, there's still a chance to rescue him. Irie had to let Atasato know that he was escaping. If they became suspicious of Irie, they would check the house and Atasato would be in danger too. In other words, it would cause a chain reaction. Irie didn't miss his last chance to escape, but he still had to do his final job. Irie picked up the phone at his desk, called Rita's home number, and left. It would continue to ring like that, sounding the emergency signal. Irie thought back to when he wondered how long he was going to stay in this director's room. He never knew this day would come so suddenly. He noticed the framed picture of his parents on his desk. Irie had become a doctor so he could clear up the misunderstanding between his parents and regain his family ties. But how did he get involved in something like this? No, he would return. He would return and continue the fight against Hinamizawa syndrome. He vowed to himself that he would never abandon that responsibility. Irie said his final goodbye and left the director's office.
さんさ、所長室の内線から外線へ通話中です。電話番号は R 宅です。
え？どういうことそれは？盗聴できるの？
もちろんです。ここでもモニターできます。
One of the members flipped a switch. There's a sound of a ringtone.
一体このタイミングで入江所長は何をあの家に電話しようというの？
やはり R は在宅していて、富武を捕らえたことを連絡しようとしているのでは。
ありえないことじゃないわ。
But it's not.
聞かれてるとも知らずに。
What was Irie going to talk about? Takano waited patiently to eavesdrop on a conversation. And there's nothing but a ringtone. It had been over 30 seconds. There was no answer. Nobody was home.
所長も根気がありますね。必ずいるはずだという強い確信があるのでしょうか。さんさ、裏口のモニターカメラに所長の姿が。
The black and white quad display monitor showed Irie running out the back door.
どういうこと？じゃあ誰が所長室から電話をしているの？
Takano became utterly confused, but the ringtone continued. It couldn't be. Takano finally realized what was going on.
罠よ。奴は私たちが監視しているのを知ってて、わざと空電話をかけて油断させた。入江は裏切り者の仲間よ。捕らえて。
一回保安室。入江所長を制圧せよ。標的は裏口から職員駐車場へ。
That's how nervous this guy sounds. The two mountain dogs who were playing cards in the security room on the first floor jumped into action. The security room was located next to the back door, so Irie was still within reach. Irie had made a serious mistake. He could have left the clinic during the 30 seconds Takano and her men were listening to the ringtone. But when he got to the parking lot, he realized he forgot his car key on his desk in the director's office, so he had to go back and get it. It was only at this point that he realized he shouldn't have gone back, yeah. He should have escaped on foot, but Irie wasn't used to emergencies, unlike Atasaka. It was a typical mistake any normal person who had never gone through any danger would make. Although he made mistakes, he didn't forget to call Atasaka. People used to become extremely clumsy when they're in a rush. All he had to do was turn the key, but he couldn't even do that smoothly. He kept turning the key, and finally the engine started. Irie still thought he was alright. Even if one of them questioned him, he would have to say that he was going to get something. When he released the handbrake with his sweaty left hand, he saw two of the mountain dogs dashing out the back door. As the two of them looked around, Irie's eyes met with one of theirs in the rear view mirror. He pointed at Irie's car, and two of them started running towards it. The two of them looked extremely serious, and certainly not like they were chasing after him to return a drop pen. Oh. Run, Irie! Please! Irie's body was soaked with sweat. But for the the music switch. But before the two of them could jump out of the car, Irie stomped on the gas pedal, and the car took off after spinning its wheels. Of course, the dogs didn't give up. They got into their own cars and started to chase after Irie.
保安より本部、所長は車両で逃走中。強制停車させますか。どうぞ。
さんさ。高野よ。おそらく行き先は古出神社ね。神社に行かれたら今日は人だらけ。捉えることは難しくなるわ。多少の怪我も構わない。行かせてはダメ。強引に停車させなさい。
保安了解。これより強制停車に移る。念のためバックアップを送れ。どうぞ。本部了解。ウグイスをバックアップに送る。だがバックアップは待つな。直ちに制圧せよ。
The mountain dogs had Irie's car in their view as it ran away at full speed. They have to find a perfect spot and timing to stop him. It's not easy to drive a car when you're in a rush. Of course, the more you step on the gas pedal, the more speed you gain. But when you're in a hurry, you can't control the steering wheel well enough to escape quickly. Irie could see his pursuers in his rearview mirror, and was completely distracted by that. He was driving carelessly. His driving was so reckless that he could easily get into an accident on his own. As the fear was driving him into a confusion, he made a wrong turn, and that mistake made him even more confused and panicked.
所長、そんな運転じゃ危ねえぞ。一発で免停だぜ。
Although the two guys were ordered to stop them, they were starting to think Irie is going to get into an accident without them doing anything. They'd rather not drag this into a car chase if they didn't have to.
追跡中の保安車両へ。こちら大鳥湾。聞こえる。
隊長だ。こちら保安車両。現在追跡中。現在地は5丁目付近林道。詳細な位置は不明。
本部要請につき、バックアップに向かってる。到達予定は15分後。こっちは当てにするな。俺だって間に合うわけねえと思ってんだ。
Otonogi grumbled. He'd have to leave Otonomi in a hurry to respond to Major Princess, but because of the distance, there's no way he could get there in time. Even so, he was still ordered to provide backup. He could have explained, but the princess wouldn't have listened to him anyway. The mountain dogs who were with Otonogi smiled bitterly.
追跡の方角は
最悪の場合、町の方へ抜けます。
そいつは許すな。山狩りはしてやる。足を破壊しろ。そこに人目は？武装は？
両脇は深い森林です。人目はなし。武装は保安車両常備の短期間銃が1。
The guy in the passenger seat reclined it and climbed into the back. He lifted one of the seats and took out a black machine gun. The paint on one of the corner was coming off, and the shiny silver metal was exposed. It was a machine gun, but it didn't look as powerful as an ordinary one. However, once the dog extended a shoulder slot and set it in place, the weapon looked far more vicious. MP5, dude, I know what that looks like. Back in the days. Shooter days. Well, I only know what an MP5 is. The man in the backseat looked at the uniquely shaped gun barrel. It was thick and long.
SD3 です。
Should we do a quick Google search? Improve our gun knowledge. SD3 gun. Well, that looks pretty intimidating. Oh, so it's a type of MP5. Kinda. Nice. Nice tech.
サイレンサー付き。
発砲を許可する。フルバーストでタイヤを破壊しろ。
保安車両了解。攻撃する。
Run, Irie. The guy in the backseat opened the driver's side back window and leaned out of the car. His sharp eyes aimed at one of the tires on Irie's vehicle. It was a straight road. Irie's car was weaving, but not enough to avoid a shot. The pursuers had his car in their sights. They were trying to get as close to Irie's car as possible, but they were afraid they might get caught up if it overturned, which is smart. They soon decided that this was close as they were going to get.
3カウントで発砲する。3、2、1。
Fire! Fire! The sound the machine gun made was a lot quieter than what people would have imagined, but its power was unimaginable. One of the tires on Irie's car was cut to shreds and collapsed in a puff of white smoke. Because one tire collapsed all of a sudden, Irie lost control of his car. He tried to steer away, but that made things even worse. As it spun, Irie's tire drove off the shoulder of the road and slid down the slope into the forest. No! The sound of trees breaking and the car being battered from every direction disappeared down the slope. The pursuers stopped their car and looked down after it, but the plants were growing so high it was impossible to check from there.
攻撃成功。標的車両は斜面を転落。死亡の可能性もあり。これより徒歩で追跡。制圧。
大鳥湾了解。
Oops.
ウグイスが周囲を探し回ってるぞ。運が良ければ合流するだろう。こっちは相変わらず間に合わん。お前らが頼りだ。頼むぞ。
了解。更新を終わる。行くぞ。
The mountain dogs left their car and headed into the woods without hesitation. Akasaka POV. Akasaka had received the phone signal from Irie. Though it's not looking good so far. 2 of the squad has been... Well, Irie's not captured yet, but he's sort of out of commission, I would assume. The phone rang for over 3 minutes. The signal told Akasaka that Irie was in some kind of emergency, that Akasaka himself was now in danger. Takano made a mistake. She didn't realize the ringtone itself was the signal. She assumed someone staying at the house would pick up the phone eventually. Her error allowed Akasaka to perceive that extremely important forewarning. Akasaka waited for exactly 3 minutes, then ran downstairs quickly. He had already put on his shoes while listening to the phone ringing. Akasaka had memorized the layout of the town from the map he kept near the phone. He knew the shortest route to the Sonozaki residence, as well as a number of alternative routes just in case the shortest was already blocked. People would be surprised to see a stranger coming out of the house, but Akasaka didn't care about that at the moment. He had to get to the Sonozaki residence immediately. However, the observers would see him, and that was a problem. They'd soon come after him. Upon finding the house empty, they assumed the man who ran from it knew something. Once Akasaka left Rika's house, he had to be prepared to fight. And this is pre-Karate Master Akasaka, again, just to remind you all. He relaxed his shoulders and reached for the doorknob, though he is still probably slightly strong, I assume.
サンサ、R 宅の監視班からです。
Let's go.
R 宅から不審な男が飛び出しました。
男？何者？どうでもいいわ。追って捕らえて。
監視班了解。制圧する。
It was only 10 a.m. It was a lively morning. Many people were getting ready for the festival. Akasaka weaved through the people going in the opposite direction and ran down the stairs leading from the shrine. The mountain gods were already chasing after him. There was a significant gulf between the happy faces on the villagers and the serious faces on Akasaka and his pursuers. He could hear them coming up behind him. He didn't even need to turn around to check. Akasaka held his breath, focusing all of his senses to their limits, as he sprinted even faster than he usually could with all his might. The success rate of an escape depends on the distance between the pursuers and the pursued. Even a little distance makes a difference. Akasaka ran down to the bottom of the stairs like the wind, and then headed in the opposite direction, away from the Sonozaki residence. Of course, this wasn't a mistake of his. He just wanted to lose them. The observers weren't ready for this chase. They never expected a fast and fully grown man to run out of the house. They assumed it would be a little girl. That assumption was their mistake. Besides, Akasaka's locomotive-like power was nothing like that of normal people. A lot of train references in this episode. There's no way they could catch him. The mountain gods fell for Akasaka's trick. They called HQ, told them that he was headed in the opposite direction, and followed him that way. Akasaka was confident that he could have them completely confused if he had a little more time. Not only that, he could have attacked them individually. Were there 3 pursuers? No, there were probably 4 of them. His mind, body, and skills were all in top condition, so it should be possible for him. Usually overrating oneself is dangerous, but Akasaka was above such an immature level. Resisting violently at a place other than his destination might prompt them to waste manpower and time. But Akasaka wasn't sure of the real meaning of Irie's phone signal. They were at a severe level of emergency. Akasaka had no time to waste, so he had to get to the Sonozaki residence. As Akasaka ran as fast as he could, he tried to think about the situation calmly. Would he attack them first and then head to the Sonozaki residence? The pursuers were scattered about and running out of breath. It would not be an easy fight for 4 men at the same time, but it would be different to take them one-on-one. When Akasaka decided he had a high enough chance of winning, he took a deep breath and made a U-turn around a streetlight. The mountain gods were surprised to see the man who was running away from them was now running towards them. They prepared themselves to fight. But before Akasaka had even reached them, he already had everything all planned out in his head. He had calculated how many blows would be required to take them all out. But his calculations were wrong. Without even needing a second blow, the first pursuer dropped after one of Akasaka's legendary armor-piercing punches connected with his face. Okay, so I guess he is a karate master. As he still, I just thought that, because we learned he became a karate master after his wife died, so I thought he wasn't really practicing as hard, but seems like he's still a legend, which is good. And while the first was still in the air, the second armor-piercing punch took out the second pursuer. Irie, is he alive? There was a chorus of cicadas, which woke Irie up. He needed a little time to realize what had just happened. The seatbelt had saved him from serious injury. However, it was sheer luck that metal parts of the seatbelt didn't get tangled up and the door didn't become warped. He was on the bottom of the slope near a different forest road. Irie endured the pain and removed his seatbelt. He got out of his car soon after. He heard someone walking toward him through the bushes. A pursuer. He couldn't get caught just yet. If he was captured, it would be impossible to rescue Tomotaki. Not only that, nobody would ever know that Tomotaki was captured in the basement of the clinic. Even though Irie knew he was helpless, he couldn't falter here. The only thing he could do was resist them, and run for as long as he could. But as soon as he started to run, Irie realized it. He had no strength, his legs were shaking, and he couldn't even see straight. He had only been stepping on the gas pedal, but his lungs were about to explode and his brain was lacking in oxygen. It had been that certain type of exhaustion that came immediately after hyper arousal. Irie understood that intellectually, but he still couldn't get his body moving. He tried to run, albeit in a wobbly way. He heard a noise coming down the slope behind him. This was it, but Irie still tried to run as far as he could. Irie heard the voice of his pursuers. Shit, he thought, what can I do? I have to run. I have to. Shion! In for the random save with the Rika baby music. And Kasai! Dude, it's Kasai's first appearance. Don't you know? It's really popular nowadays. They just spot him. There's a red car ahead. White smoke was still visible, so the accident must have just happened. Dude, there's a lot of lucky coincidences, huh? The whole Akane thing with Oishi and now Kasei and Shion. It's pretty good. Kasei slowed down. The car stopped. The sound of the brakes startled Irie and he fell on his behind. Irie was obviously the one who had been in the accident. Run! Kasei looked at Irie's car, then looked around the area. Then he whispered to Shion. The two of them loaded into Irie into the back seat, got in the car, and left in a hurry. Damn. Yeah, and I guess the guys couldn't really attack them because they don't want any other casualties, right? Shion was confused as to why Kasei suddenly made a wrong turn. The classic make continuous left turns to check if you're being pursued. I've definitely heard that before in like crime shows. Actually, even here, I think not in this arc, but in another arc, I think there's something about that. Definitely don't want to get tailed to the main.
標的は民間車両に拾われた模様。車両ナンバーと車種を送る。本部了解。捜索中のウグイスは民間車両に標的を変更。至急捜索せよ。異例所長は極力生きたままで確保。接触民間人も制圧せよ。ただし生死は問わない。
大丈夫なの？すぐに見つかるの？
ご安心を。所長の白衣には発信機が。
Oh shit. We didn't know that.
ウグイスの応援車両には測定器
That's
が積まれていますので
really bad
三
then.
角測定法で位置を検知できます。
That they'll track him to the Sonozaki residence. Uh-oh. Eri was lying in the back seat wearing his white coat. There was a device on his collar. The security department put it there just in case. So no matter how hard Shion tried to look for anyone following them, the enemy already knew exactly where they were.
ウグイス3、標的車両を発見。水車小屋の前を小道に入った。
There's a map of Hinamizawa on the table in the security room. The path by the watermill led to a certain private property. It belonged to the Sonozaki family, and the Sonozaki residence was the only building on it.
サンサ。
あらあら、袋のネズミね。
こちら大鳥湾。ウグイス、まだ突入するな。
Oh, now Otonodi is probably, you know, Otonodi was smack talking the backup call, but now it's actually like pretty important to have backup.
もうじき大鳥が合流する。合流してから一度に突入するぞ。
ウグイス1了解。
黒木、ウグイスにさっさと突入させないと相手に無駄な時間を与えるわよ。
No, no, no. I mean, they don't know about Satoko's trap lands going on, but it's definitely better to have a full group.
感度あるし。
Based Otonodi.
誰も私の言うことなんか聞かないんだから。
So, I mean, I trust Otonodi in these matters a bit more. Though Takano's intuition is always nice. Alright, I'm gonna end it here, even though there are chapter chats. I think an hour long is pretty good. Plus, it's getting kind of bright in here, which is making it harder to see the screen. Luckily, it's not too bright yet, but I don't really wanna. I wanna read this in like good conditions, not bad. But it's been a good session, dude. We basically got like no club member stuff, but it was like super intense and fun. I like the vibe. So pretty good counterattack by Otonodi and Takano. They stopped the 9 a.m. Lose condition. But we'll see what's happening next. I assume we'll get some club member stuff and Shion will officially join the squad with Kasai. But yeah, big clash is happening. We'll probably have to escape into the mountains and hope Satoko's trap course works well. But thanks for watching as always. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!